Hey guys, today we're going to start division of decimals. As we work through the lesson, I want you to think about how you can divide decimals by decimals, how you can divide decimals by whole numbers, how you can divide whole numbers by a decimal, and we're going to learn some of those strategies today as we move through the video. As always, I want you to think about the lesson objective before we start it so you know what you're expected to learn as you move through the video. Today you're going to be learning to divide decimals by a whole number and a decimal by a decimal. This is a standard that you need to know as a sixth grader based on the fact that it's there at the bottom. It's standard 6.ns.3. So it is a sixth grade standard that you need to know before you leave sixth grade. I would encourage you to take notes during the lesson so that you can use them when you complete your assignment that's going to follow. So please take notes. You can look back at those as we go through. I want to encourage you to pause the video when I ask you to and try it on your own first. See what you already know about division of decimals. And then I'm going to give you some examples to show you how to solve the problem. So try it on your own first. I encourage you to go ahead and pause that when we get to those points in the PowerPoint. Dividing decimals are similar to dividing integers. Remember, an integer is a whole number or a negative number. It is not a decimal or a fraction. So remember, it's a whole number or a negative number only. One important difference is that division with decimals has no remainder, and you're going to find that out a little later what I mean by that. When dividing a decimal by an integer, start by placing the decimal point in the quotient. If we already have a whole number that we're dividing, that is the divisor, we don't have to do any decimal movement other than just move the decimal up into the quotient. Remember, a quotient is the answer to a division problem, and the dividend is the number that's being divided. So if the dividend is the only one that has a decimal, you move it straight up into the quotient, and you're ready to start dividing as you would if it were just an integer. If necessary, you may be required to insert zeros after the last non-zero digit in the dividend until you find a decimal quotient that either terminates, repeats, or I've asked you to round to a specific place value. So let's look at example 1. A scientist has 21 7/10 milliliters of a chemical solution. He divides the solution evenly among 3 different cylinders for an experiment. How many milliliters of solution will be in each cylinder? Of course, we need to use our math strategies here, so we're going to circle those key numbers. We have 21 7/10 that he's starting with. We're going to divide that into 3 different cylinders. We're going to need to underline the question that we're trying to answer. How many milliliters of solution will be in each cylinder? Now remember that when we look at this problem, we're going to look at keywords. We're going to box those. So this time it actually says divides, and it also uses another keyword, each. So we know that we're going to be dividing them into each cylinder. In this case, we're going to determine what should be our division sentence. So the next step that we're going to take, or actually the very first step that we're going to take in this strategy, is we're going to place it in a division sentence so that we see what's actually being divided up. So at this point, we're going to write the problem vertically. We're going to divide from left to right, just like we always do with regular integers. However, we may need to insert zeros into the dividend. Now, at this time, I want to encourage you to pause the video, try it on your own first, and then I'm going to give you the explanation for it. But I would like to know that you've tried it on your own to see how much you already know about division of decimals. So go ahead and pause the video now, please. In my explanation of example 1, the first step would be to write a division sentence for the problem. We already know that he had 21 7/10 milliliters of solution. We also knew that he wanted to divide them into 3 cylinders. So if we look here, we have our 3 cylinders, and we're going to divide that number into the amount of solution that he started with, which was 21 7/10. And I just put S as the variable. Remember, if the problem does not give you a variable, a specific variable, you can use any. So I just use S for solution. The next step, in step 2, I want you to write the problem as you would a regular whole number division problem, you're going to place the decimal point. Because we don't have a decimal point in the divisor and we only have one in the dividend, we can just move it straight up into our quotient. So we don't really have to do any decimal movement except for right into our quotient. Step 3, you're going to divide as you would divide an integer. If you'll look here, I'm dividing 3 into 21 7/10. As I start division, I already know that 3 is not going to go into 2, so I'm going to divide into 21. That's a basic multiplication fact for me, so I know that 7 times 3 equals 21. There's going to be no remainder. I'm going to make sure that you can see, and you just barely see it. I've got my cursor here to show you. There is a small decimal point that I've already brought up there, but it's not showing up really well. I'm going to go ahead and bring my 7 down. Now I'm going to divide 3 into 7, and I know that goes 2 times, so I'm going to put my 2 in the quotient up over the 7, and I'm going to subtract, and I get 1. I'm going to go ahead and add a 0, bring it down, and now I have 3 into 10. How many groups of 3 are in 10? And I know that that's going to be 3. So 3 times 3 equals 9. I'm going to subtract. And then I'm going to add another 0 and bring it down. I also know that 3 goes into 10 3 times. So I'm going to go ahead and do my multiplication and get 9. There is a remainder of 1. You'll notice that there. But you'll also notice that every time that we place a 0 in the dividend, we continue to have a remainder of 1. So that's telling us something about this quotient. It's telling us that it's going to be a repeating decimal. And there's a way that we can write this, and you're going to see that in my solution. So I'm going to stop here because I know it's going to be repeating. So as of right now, I have the answer as 7 233 thousandths. So in this explanation, our solution is each cylinder will have 7 23/100 milliliters of chemical solution. As you can see, up over the 3, I have a little line. No matter how many times I divide this problem, I'm going to continue to get a 3. That 3 will be repeating continuously. So instead of writing that 3 over and over, I'm just going to put a little line over top of the 3. That is telling you that that is going to be a repeating decimal. So that's going to continue on forever, no matter how long you divide that out. All right, so now we're going to talk about dividing a decimal by a decimal. To divide a decimal, change the decimal to an integer by moving the decimal point to the right. Then move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of spaces to the right. For example, if we were dividing 8 625 thousandths divided by 1 75 hundredths, we're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right in both numbers. This is the same as multiplying both numbers by 100. So let's look at this example here. If I'm dividing 1 75 or multiplying 1 75 hundredths times 100, then that's going to allow me to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Then, now I just have a regular integer. It's a whole integer, so I don't need to, it's not negative, but it's a positive integer. And I'm able to now use that as that number. But if I'm going to do that to the divisor, I also have to be fair and do it to the dividend. So I'm going to multiply it times 100 as well. So you can see here that I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right. And now I have a dividend of 862 5/10. The quotient, and as long as you move the decimal in the divisor and the quotient the same number of spaces, you shouldn't have any trouble with the division part of your problem. You're now going to move the quotient straight up, or the decimal straight up into the quotient, and you're ready to divide this problem. So let's try example 2. Divide 84 675 thousandths divided by 3 9/10. Now remember, you're going to change the divisor to an integer. You're going to move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of places, and then you're going to divide from left to right. Round your answer to the nearest thousandth if necessary. So it's telling you a place value. Remember that if you're dividing and you're wanting to round to the thousandths place value, you're going to have to divide through the 10 thousandths place value. Also remember that you're going to look for what power of 10 will allow you to get rid of that decimal point in the divisor. In this case, we have 1 decimal place value to the right. So there's telling you that you're going to look for a power of 10 that will allow you to move the decimal once. That power of 10 is the number 10. So pause the video, try it on your own first. So in step 1, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to change the divisor to an integer or a whole number. So I'm going to multiply 3 9/10 times 10 to be able to move it once to the right. Of course, you're going to look at the zeros in whatever power of 10 you're multiplying by to help you move that decimal. You're going to move the decimal in step 2 in the dividend one place as well, because you have to be fair to the right. So this is the same as multiplying by a power of 10. And now we have 846 and 75/100ths divided by 39. All right, so you're going to rewrite the problem with the new dividend in the divisor. You're going to place the decimal point straight up in the quotient. So if you look at our problem here, I have the decimal point straight up. So we're ready to just divide like we would if it were a regular integer. So the first thing that I did was 39 into 84. I know that it can go 2 times, so I'm going to multiply 2 times 39 to get 78. I'm going to subtract, and I have a remainder of 6. I'm going to bring down the next digit, and that is a 6. So now I'm dividing 39 into 66. I know that's only going to go 1 time, so I'm going to do 1 times 39 to get 39. I subtract and get 27. I'm going to bring down the next digit, which is a 7. Now I'm going to divide 39 into 277. That goes 7 times. 7 times 39 equals 223. Subtract to get 4. I'm going to bring down my 5. 39 goes into 45 1 time. 1 times 39 is 39. I'm going to subtract and I get a 6. I'm going to go ahead and annex that 0 because I know I've got to divide through the 10,000ths place. So I'm going to bring that 0 down. Now I have a 60. 39 goes into 60 1 time. I'm going to do my subtraction. I get 21. I'm going to bring another 0 down. Now I'm going to divide 39 into 210. I know that goes 5 times. 5 times 39 is 195. I do have a remainder of 15, but remember in the problem I asked you to divide through the 10,000ths place so you could round to the thousandths place. So in this case I have a 5. If you have 5 or more, you're going to raise the score. So that means I'm going to change this 1 to a 2 and get my final answer. So our solution for this particular problem is 84 and 675 thousandths divided by 3 9/10 is equal to 21 and 712 thousandths. So here's where I rounded to the place value. That 5 told me to take that 1 and make it a 2. Let's revisit our lesson objective. I'm learning to divide a decimal by a whole number and a decimal by a decimal. Use those examples that I gave you to work on your practice problems that I'm going to give you in a different menu. Thank you.